Today I'm going to do my presentation on my thesis paper, which was The Advantage of Invisibility in Ralph Ellison's novel Invisible Man. Um, in order to understand the notion of invisibility and our protagonist in the novel, you must first understand Ralph Ellison himself and his ideology. Ralph Ellison seemed to wholeheartedly buy into the idea of the American dream for African Americans. He felt that the African American experience was indeed an American experience. He didn't make the distinction between white America and black America. He felt like that if African Americans worked hard, they could attain the American dream. It was their God given right, given to them by the founders. When the founders created the Constitution, they included African Americans in it also. Ralph Ellison hopes to prove the point that Negroes are far from being an undifferentiated mass of his suffering victims with no autonomous existence of their own. The Invisible Man. I know for me, when I thought about I never heard of the novel before reading it. Probably about 2 years ago now. And when I thought about the title, The Invisible Man, I immediately assumed that the invisibility was that he was physically unseen, like maybe a ghost or a spirit or something along those lines. But the invisibility that he speaks of in the novel is not physical. When one thinks of a person as invisible, you immediately assume they are physically unseen, but that is not always the case. The protagonist considers himself invisible because society does not evaluate him using the inner eye, but rather make him a victim of prejudice. The reader is never told the narrator's name. This is done deliberately in an attempt to illustrate the severity of his lack of identity. The immaturity of the invisible man. The invisible man himself, even though he is unseen by the white world and the white power structure, he fails to see the beauty in black culture. He seems to shun it, is even a little embarrassed by it. The immaturity of the invisible man continued. The invisible man grapples with white acceptance and craves it. Langston Hughes describes black people like the invisible man as one who is ashamed of black culture. The Battle Royale is a perfect example of the invisible man allowing his idealism to cloud his judgment. He hopes to fully assimilate into the white community by acquiring their approval. The invisible man has an immense desire to separate himself from the we of the black community. By extracting himself from the community, he feels he will become better, distinguished even. Furthermore, he feels that what is right will always prevail. Even though he has experienced extreme racism, he still feels like that if he stays the course of his and does things the right way, which in his mind is the right way, he will always prevail. He'll attain the 40 acres and the mule. He'll be Dr. Bledsoe, never realizing that in order to get these markers of success, he has to give up so much of himself. And once you give up so much of yourself, you give the next person so much power over you that they can take those things from you, and it's like then you're left literally with no identity and you don't have those possessions anymore. Survival mechanism. Trickerism defined. Almost every oral tradition in the world has a trickster figures, and African American culture is no exception. In other words, tricksters succeed by outsmarting or outthinking their opponents and executing their actions. They give no thought to right or wrong. Indeed, they are immoral. There are several trickster figures in the novel that he comes into contact with, and eventually he himself tries to play the part of a trickster. The narrator's grandfather as a trickster. The narrator's grandfather offers him deathbed advice that haunts him for much of the novel. He advises him to keep up the good fight and to overcome them with yeses, undermine them with grins, and agree him to death and destruction. Let him swallow you till they vomit you or bust wide open. This is a direct quote from the novel. On one hand, it seems that his grandfather is encouraging him to live a life of civility, but on the other hand, he himself feels that he has failed at life because he is conformed to the white man's world. This is what I was talking about how you literally give so much up in yourself by conforming that you lose yourself in the process and you become exactly what they want. And even then, eventually, that won't be good enough. Jim Trueblood as a trickster. Trueblood has been a very well-liked black man in town. He becomes invisible after he has an incestuous relationship with his daughter. Because of this heinous act, Trueblood now has become a sought-after social study. His opinion is now regarded. He garners attention from people who do not normally care anything about his feelings or thoughts. This vile and disgusting thing has made him visible. Trueblood now represents the stereotypical black sexual misfit. Trueblood plays into the stereotypical young, not necessarily young, but the stereotypical sexual buck, that white people often think about when they think about black men. He allows himself, his desires, to overtake him, and he has this incestuous relationship. By playing into that stereotype, he becomes exactly what they think he already is. So they reward him for it because in their mind, he's exactly what they know he is, and it's not his fault. It's out of his control because sexually he's just insatiable almost. We take these white folks where we want them to go. Dr. Bledsoe is also a trickster figure in the novel. Bledsoe has mastered a life of obedience in the face of white people, though behind the scenes he is very powerful. Like the narrator's grandfather, he understands the advantage of being invisible. When in the presence of Mr. Morton or any other white man of power, he is docile and meek, playing the part of a humble servant perfectly. He insists that playing this part will allow him to be more powerful than the white men who think they are in control. Bledsoe is a trickster figure. Um, is very He's very different from Trueblood in the sense that he's successful. He has all the markings of success that both the white power structure feel like he should have and the black power structure. Well, not the black power structure, black people, specifically the narrator. The narrator has hopes of being just like Dr. Bledsoe. As big and black, and I say yes. Bledsoe feels that success and power are things that white people should worry about. The narrator should focus on networking, becoming what a powerful people want to see, and wielding power behind the scenes. Bledsoe's invisibility is that white people don't see him as a true manipulator that he is. The narrator is expelled from school, so he migrates from south to north in hopes of better opportunities, partly because Dr. Bledsoe tells him that that's what he'll find. The only trouble with ambition is that sometimes it blinds one to reality. This is a quote directly from the book once again, and it's from from Mr. Emerson's son, and I think this quote stood out to me is because the narrator throughout the novel is so blinded by his own ambition and what he thinks that he should be doing and what he thinks means he is successful that he's just so lost. He'll do anything to get that success and even make a fool out of himself. For example, with the Battle Royale, he's just so blinded by the need to be successful that he'll give up. He'll give up everything, which is why he falls deeper into anonymity when he joins the Brotherhood. The narrator gives an impromptu speech to prevent an eviction and meets Brother Jack, a member of the Brotherhood, a multiracial social group whose mission is social change. Brother Jack offers the narrator a new identity, a new job with good pay and an apartment. The narrator just had to give up his own identity and follow the ideology of the Brotherhood. He does this willingly. He at first he attempts to be a trickster himself, but he actually starts to buy into the ideology of the brotherhood. He starts to believe it. He starts to believe that he can exact change, and this is how he becomes a puppet. But once again, when they give you, when they, being the white power structure, give him all of this power, they also, he's still invisible because at any time they can take it away from him and he's left with nothing, which is exactly what the brotherhood does to him. They don't want you to go too fast and will cut you if you do. Although the narrator is the public blackface, he does not wield any real power. The narrator is transferred to the Harlem section. This move is to remind him that he is a puppet, nothing more, nothing less. This is the fail at trickerism, is what I spoke about a few seconds ago. He actually starts to believe the ideology of the brotherhood, so he fails miserably at trickerism himself. The supreme trickster within the novel was Mr. Reinhardt. On one hand, Reinhardt allows the narrator to escape his reality with ease. Reinhardt also allows the narrator to control his own destiny. This is accomplished because as Reinhardt, he can change identities whenever it suits him. Even though Reinhardt was the supreme trickster, I felt like it was sad to be everything to everybody and only be able to find peace in becoming all these people. Like, you can't attain that peace from just being yourself. The ultimate trick played on the white world. Since society refuses to recognize him, he does not have to assume social duties but can practice civil disobedience. This is in relation to his hibernation. Internally, he understands that he cannot remain in hiding forever. This time allows him to gather his strength for the future battle. Through his thought process, he is able to piece together the pieces of his life into a perspective. So he has a change in perspective, obviously. While underground, he becomes aware that being invisible is not the way to enact change for the black man in America. He decides that he does not want to affirm the mistaken notions of blackness by white America. The fight for equal rights cannot be fought by being docile. And although invisibility can carry a dormant potential, it is clear from the novel that visibility is the final goal. I think that I enjoyed this novel. Each time, Invisible Man is one of those novels that each time you read it, it seems like you kind of pick up a little something more each time. And also just the parallels that I drew to just modern day society from the novel. Like, a lot of times, when it comes to, in my mind, in my opinion, when it comes to black people, everyday black people, we are still invisible. Our issues are so far removed from the white power structure or mainstream white America that our celebrities are accepted within the black community. Celebrities and athletes are, but the everyday people, where celebrities might make up 1% of the African American population in America, they are accepted. But the other 99% of us, we're still, a thug and a doctor are still synonymous in a lot of people's mind. They're the same. They don't draw the distinction because of the color of your skin. I was able to draw so many different parallels from the book, which was written 50, 60 some odd years ago, to now. And I always find that interesting, how history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it doesn't seem like it changes much. I think that was like the most interesting thing for me. Also, in retrospect, like the brotherhood, the fact that this multiracial social group actually had the audacity to think that they, by being, this group that were all for black people and, trying to exact change, but didn't want to speak about race, and race wasn't a factor when race was everything. Like, they could never really approach the problem of being an African American or black person in America at the time because it didn't want to deal with the thought of race. And that was another thing that I think kind of stuck out to me. But overall, I really enjoyed the book, and I really enjoyed the research. That's the end.